I've made a few videos on questioning Christians, things that Christians say and, well, things that they can't reply to in the Bible. Do they even follow it? Why, what? When somebody says objective morality proves God exists, because we can only have objective morality if God was there. What that person is saying right there, if you talk to them and you figure out what they've got going on, at the end of the day, what I think to myself, that's a pervert right there. That because they believe in God is the only reason they're not hurting somebody or molesting children or something like that. Do you think of doing stuff like that? I don't. If somebody says they're not doing things like that because of God, then what the hell? They better believe in God, huh? What would they be doing if they didn't believe in God? Think about it. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. In this one, though, I'm going to reply to, it's not going to be that extreme. This is going to be very gentle, but it's going to be on the other side. This is a logic over faith video that I'm going to reply to. It is an atheist video. I'm going to do some policing. You ever notice Christians sometimes will say, oh, they're not a real Christian. They're not a real Christian. They're not a real Christian. But did they go around policing them and telling them they're not a real Christian? No, they just let it all fly. All right, so I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is play a sample of a video, and then I'm going to respond to it. It's going to be gentle, though. Watch what happens. What I'm going to do is teach here. The individual, I know what they're saying, but there's more to the story than they know, and that his audience knows. So,
Jesus is often seen as the central figure of Christianity, the foundation on which the entire religion is built. Billions of people believe in him as a real person who walked the earth, performed miracles, died, and rose from the dead. But if we peel back the layers of history and examine the evidence with clear eyes, something very different begins to appear. The Jesus we know today may not be the product of history at all. Instead, he may have been the invention of one man, Paul of Tarsus. This isn't just speculation. When we look at the earliest Christian writings, at the silence of history, and at the contradictions between what Paul says and what the later Gospels say, the case becomes very strong that the Jesus worshipped in Christianity was not a flesh and blood figure walking the streets of Galilee, but a theological creation of Paul's mind.
All right, I don't want to go extensively through his video and go through all the talking points and things like that. I'll post the link below if you're interested. What I want to do right here, though, is just step back from it and say, wait, no, there's something bigger going on. I'm going to pull my head out of your conversation, the Christian, the atheist, all of it, because there's something bigger going on. A Christian is going to say it's true, and they're going to be focusing on the Jesus being a real individual, having walked we know the story. An atheist is going to be contending that that's not true, and they're going to be focused on that competition right there between, is it true? No, it's not. Yes, it's true. No, it's not. Yes, it's true. Yet, if you step back from it, mentally, let it go, look at it objectively. It was in 1949 when Joseph Campbell first published his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Jesus has been around many times, many places. What Jesus is a story on a monomyth template. And if you saw that, you would know what it is exactly. Let me show you that very quick with Jesus and some other, a few other examples here. These are just ones that are easy to see. Jesus is a common monomyth hero. Watch for this conceptual patterns. That monomyth hero was around Babylonian and Sumerian times. It starts way in the beginning. Marduk was a monomyth hero in the Enuma Elish. These are all written on a commonly shared template. That's where it started back then. Jesus is called as the Son of God, has supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked disciples, and seeks the kingdom of heaven within. Look for the things that are in common between them. Jason is called as the rightful ruler, has Hera for supernatural powers, travels with the Argonauts, and seeks the golden fleece. King Arthur is called as the only one who could extract Excalibur, has Merlin for supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked knights, and seeks the Holy Grail. George Lucas, in an interview, said he used Joseph Campbell's template for the first Star Wars trilogy. And remember how it was impactful and the rest of them weren't. It was following a template pattern that's very impactful because it follows the human psyche. We don't know it. It's in the background, but we really connect with these. Luke is called as the son of Vader, has the force for supernatural powers, travels with special selected rebels, and seeks to save the Alliance. But you see that up there with Jesus? He's called as the Son of God, has supernatural powers, comes bundled with him, travels with the disciples, and seeks the kingdom of heaven within. A little bit ago, I said, step back. We're going to look at something different. I'm not going to focus on the two. Yes, it happened. No, it didn't. Do you see those patterns right there? That's what we're going for. Forget the story. What's that pattern? That template is meaningful. The story is a carrier. It's based on how a human turns in and heals inward. If you were to interpret the pathway of Jesus, if you were to interpret his words and follow them, what you would do is find exactly the same thing as a Buddha path to inward, to inner peace. However, it's carried in a manner, in a packaging system that is going to have an incredible influence over the population. Buddhism doesn't, does it? It doesn't. Buddhism doesn't really become a political tool. It's a personal, self-healing, self-psychology, plus lifestyle, way of life, being at peace, letting things go, not getting caught up into stuff, all the things that people tend to do. And if you were to follow and interpret Christianity, it'll get you there. But if you don't, what it's going to do is lead the average person who's not going to turn inward. Let me say a couple of examples. Buddha tells you to seek emptiness. Jesus says to be poor in spirit. What are those? Buddha, karma, cause and effect. Jesus, the measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. Cause and effect. They're the same things held in different verbiage. The religion itself is a carrier, but Paul may have flavored Jesus, but Jesus is not brand new right there. Also, and I'll talk about this more in detail at the end, but Paul's the one that basically said, just worship Jesus and you're a Christian, you'll go to heaven. Just understand that he died for your sins and worship him. Why would he invent Jesus and that whole story and then tell people just to worship him? The way he is treated as what essentially, well, he's the Son of God and he's treated as something to worship like that. What is he? He's a Hercules. He's an Enoch. He's a Noah. All right, first of all, we need to understand what a monomyth is, and I'm going to springboard off of Joseph Campbell's work. If you're familiar with his work, that's great. If you're not, I'm not even recommending the book. I didn't finish reading it. I got turned on to Joseph Campbell at some point in time in my studies. I'm talking with somebody who says, it sounds like you're doing what Joseph Campbell is doing. Are you following his path? And I didn't know anything about him at that time, and I looked at it, and it was like, oh, okay, I see something there. But it wasn't exactly what I'm doing. Look at what he's got here. Oh, and let me tell you, first of all, in brief, kind of how he discovered this. He lived his life just studying myth and religion and was a professor, traveled the world, studied all kinds of things, had a great life, but he studied so many different things that he began to recognize patterns in them. We all see patterns. There's videos out there on people, so-and-so is plagiarizing from these people over here, taking their stories and replicating them. We see those happening. Okay, what's happening is way back then, these are word of mouth. They're not traveled through any kind of media. They're going to be very local. We see them all in big concert. They did not. They didn't see the big picture, but they did see it deeper. They had them memorized. We do not. That's going to be critical in some areas. Okay, now, that makes it hard for us to access the story. Plato made that same claim when writing was coming about. He said that people no longer have the depth of knowledge now that books are available as that they used to in material. Used to be when you had something memorized, you could stand there and talk about it all day. You know, there in Genesis in chapter 12, when Sarai and Abram are called by God, but God, after he gives them everything, he just kind of disappears. Why do you think that happens? Today, people have to go, oh, hang on a second. Let me go get my Bible, go look it up, catch it, read. They wouldn't do that. They would be able to, they'd know it. They would talk about it in a way that we can't. So we have to understand that we might think we're really knowledgeable on this, but we have to get out of our heads and go, they knew this stuff in a way that we don't. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. There's a lot of moving parts to this. As far as my qualifications, you know what? This was made before there was books. This was made before most people could read or write. The story, what we need is in the stories. And you're not going to learn it in school. It was not made that way. It's made for us to find. Okay, this is the 17 stages that Joseph Campbell identified. Don't get stuck on that 17. We're going to find in monomyths that there's multiple different, some have more, some have less. But what he identified here was that there was a call to adventure, that there's this individual typically that is called, it's always going to be a male. It has to be a male. And there's a reason for that, because the stories are written utilizing a mental hierarchy where there's a conscious and then a subconscious. This is an inward healing path. So they're going to be utilizing a structure that is like in a patriarchal society. Adam, Eve, conscious, subconscious. Eve, subservient to Adam. Woman, subservient to man. Inner self, product of conscious thinking, subservient to. We need to understand what they're doing and what they're teaching here. So it has to be a man. And the man is going to be reluctant. This is where we're going to see the monomyths pick up. Jesus isolated out. Moses isolated out. Somebody somehow is isolated out. Go to the Argonautica. Jason, he's born in a young family, but someone's going to take over the kingdom from Jason's father, and Jason it's to kill Jason, but he gets saved out. So Jason is saved out. There's this pattern of somehow this individual is getting saved out from being killed, a male son. In fact, we see a repeat of that very same thing with the Jesus story, where they actually go to Egypt, that point in time where he disappears, where the life isn't there, but he returns when it's time for the calling. And then what happens is the next step starts happening, and in many cases, there's a reluctance to do it. The person might say, I'm not the right person. We would see that. It's called the denial on Joseph Campbell's template, where the person is called to go on the adventure and they don't want to go. They're reluctant. We would see that in Exodus, where God at the burning bush on Mount Horeb tells Moses, I think it's in chapter 3, that to lead my people. And several times he's reluctant. I think it's up to 3 times in there. He's like, I'm not the right person. Are you sure? I don't speak right. Can you please send somebody else? Anyway, so there's a call. Time for you to go. I don't want to go. We see that happening. And then next he identified with supernatural aid. And what do we see at the same point in time right there? Throw your rod on the ground, pick it up. What happens? He gets his supernatural aid right there. We see the story patterns that he was identifying. We know those ones already, but he was seeing that across the board. And bear in mind now that there's some conceptual things going on. Everything has to be shifted around. Everything is left in analogous verbiage here. But what do we have next here? After supernatural aid, we've got the crossing of the first threshold. We've got to cross the Red Sea. And then belly of the whale, we are going to spend 40 years in the desert. Road of trials, we're going to have to consume very, very minimal amounts. Now it goes a little off the rails. Joseph Campbell doesn't have it identified exactly right. In fact, you will see that there isn't that isolation of an individual here. There's just a call to adventure, as if anybody can do it. Yet the material tells us, many called, few are chosen, many carry the ark, few will look inside. Not that this is going to be a rare path. Not many people are going to turn inward. So that is not identified by Joseph Campbell either. So at some point we have to kind of leave his template and come up with something interactive, mentally interactive. All right, what I want to do here is kind of describe the problem that we have in cognition, in comprehending these stories, how they're made. I'm going to create my own here instead of utilizing anything from antiquity. We'll just make up something modern right here. Okay, so the idea is this. The self-healing path is this way. First of all, we have to know it is completely mental, nothing supernatural. It is all mental. We live through our memories and our judgments and our perceptions. That's the mote in our eye. That is the ought against our brother. That is the third eye that is clogged. That is the perception. This is the mass of memories that we live through until we understand we're living through the memories. And instead of going, wait a minute, I am not those memories. I am something higher. Then we begin work to heal those memories, to completely change our life. That's the process of the template, the healing template. Something happened to me one time in life and it pisses me off. It bothers me, or I'm ashamed, or somehow something. I won't even tell people about it. However, it continues to hurt your life and continues to drive your life. So it happens that way. You have to go back to heal that. You have to go back and find a way to resolve that issue. That's this whole path to turn inward right now. And that right there will be analogously referred to as a rebirth. Now, if you can imagine passing that around in the population plain language here, in order to feel better and to have a better life, you must go back and resolve all the things that have hurt you and imagine all the stuff that is, stuff that happened to you or stuff that you did to somebody else or all those things that we're afraid of them. We don't like to face them. However, they continue to be a monkey on our back. Not until we go, you know what, my life's not going to change until I stop right here and go fix this crap. There you go. Now your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret because you stopped looking for a better life and went and resolved the odd against your brother. The material is telling us what to do. Unfortunately, what happens? You pass that around in the population. You're the teacher. You go, oh, I figured something out. I need to spread this around for everybody to know. You must forgive the person who hurt you, or you must find a way to let go of the hurt that you're holding onto against that person. Don't worry about forgiving them. Worry about letting go of the hurt that you have that you're holding onto. How many times have you said, okay, I forgive the person because you know you're supposed to, but inside you're thinking, fuck, I hate that son of a bitch. I don't like him at all. So forgiveness is really what you're looking for, is to change your life course, which is being steered by an emotion that you're maintaining in your mind unresolved. And the cause and effect is going to cause that to continue to reemerge. People aren't going to pass that around, though. They're going to say, I'm not doing that. I have been in my own life sometimes trying to work things out with people that I had issues with who said, shut up, get away from me. You feel better about yourself? What are you, a girl? You got to take care of all your feelings and all that stuff? And you're like, man, this sucks. I hate the way this feels. I want to resolve it. And they're just like, not that way. Okay, I'm a called person. They are not. I see that right there. I know this path experientially. So instead, you know that there's other people out there like you that need to get this. And at the same time, you know that the population needs to be controlled. We're not going to get there yet. At this layer right here, I'm not going to make it religious. Let's just make it, I'm going to create a verse that's going to hold that idea. What I want to do is nest that idea into something that I see in my environment. So I see a ship that is anchored, and because it's anchored, it can't escape. And I go, oh, that's perfect. If I become, the ship is analogous for me being anchored to something. As long as I'm holding on to this, I can't escape it. I just go around a circle. Well, it's perfect. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so you pass that around. An anchored ship will not sail. And people that know that it's an analogous teaching, somehow it's in a body of work or something, they know how to manage it in a way that they go, oh, I am the ship and what I'm hanging on to. I get that. I understand that teaching right there. But the people that don't understand it will nevertheless pass it around. And there's three ways that they can look at it. And right now, the conflict between two ways is the conflict between theists and atheists. They're not at that deep layer. That conceptual layer is a self-healing layer. They're at layer 2 where it goes like this. They understand. Well, first of all, there's a person that doesn't interpret it, the literalist. That just means an anchored ship will not sail. That's all there is to it. That's all they get out of it. However, people that know it's a metaphor for something will go, oh, I am the ship. However, whatever they're anchored to is going to be in the physical world, not in the mental world, not in the spiritual world up here. It's going to be in the physical world. I see. As long as I'm hanging on to my dead-end job, this relationship, this habit, these things that I'm not doing or that I am doing repeatedly. Oh, I've got these. As long as I'm doing this, I'm not going to get it. As long as I'm hanging on to this stuff, I'm not going to get free of it. And you're like, yeah, that would work. That's perfect. It sounds good. But it's not at the deepest layer. Why are you there to begin with? As within, so without. There's something up here that is the true issue. So you're not deep enough yet. However, somebody else might look at it and say, no, that's not what it means at all. Because when I was born, I was raised in an orphanage. I don't even remember my mom and dad. I remember being abused. I remember being molested. I remember all kinds of bad stuff. I was headed for jail when I left out of there. I was out of control. I was angry. But I got a hold of this group this organization somehow that I fit in with, that rang with me, that helped me change my ways and let go of things. Somehow something. There's organizations out there that can do that. And they can say, an anchored ship cannot sail is a good thing. You're supposed to hang on to something. And you'd go, well, that sounds good too. But what do we have right there? We have conflict and interpretation. That's where different denominations come in. Actually, that's where Christianity resides. All those different interpretations of it. The atheist is the one that's telling them, nope, none of that is true. None of it's true. But none of them are at the layer of what is the deepest conceptual layer. And that is where the issue comes in. We have to know how to interpret these verses. They're about us. I am that I am. That means something. We have to understand what this stuff means. We have to put ourselves into it. They are us. All right, and then just simply change genres by looking around the environment and keep doing that. I mean, there's always something tied somewhere that can't escape. The dog tied in the yard cannot run away. The goat chained in the back field can only stay, in length of the chain. The tether ball can only go around the pole. All of those are very easy to see, though. But they're holding the idea that what you're holding on to up mentally, you can't escape from. All of them are holding that same idea. And that in many cases, it's also showing a cycle, that there's a cycle that's going to occur over and over again. Now, we can change the analogs by saying, that as we live life, this is a Lao Tzu one, as we live life, we build a wheel. But it's the center hub that determines the direction or something to that effect. So as we're living life, we are building the wheel. This is something that's going to cycle, and whatever is in the middle is going to cause the way life cycles for us. When we put ourselves into the story, we begin to go, okay, they're kind of doing the same thing. That's the same as an anchored ship will not sail. How about a tree that grows up, gets chopped down, and it grows up again, and it gets chopped down, and it continues to grow back until you pull it out by the root. That's the same thing, too. Now we have something emerging from your garden. What's that? What are you tied to? What is the root? The root is what you're mentally hanging on to. You keep cycling around. And as long as that root of the tree is still there, it continues to reemerge over and over again. So it becomes this very complex verbiage shift that always means the same thing. It's just how many ways can you think of saying you got bats in your belfry? Your elevator doesn't quite make it to the highest floor. There's something wrong upstairs, Jesus material, it's exactly the same way. What about washing the cup, the inside, because whoever made outside made the inside too. Well, that's us. We're the cup. Wash the inside, not just the outside. Don't just put on a face. Purge yourself. We are the wine and the wineskin. Wine is life, the way we feel in life. Wine is how you feel. Wineskin is me. I'm the wineskin. I can't put an old way of life, an old way of feeling into a new self. Otherwise, it's going to ruin both of them. I can't put new life into an old self, but only a new life goes into a new self. I must purge. I must heal myself. I must let go of things. All of them in very complex ways are going to be, once you learn to read them, turn them inward and understand how to flip they're analogs. I want to stand naked before you. What does that mean? Oh, dude, don't do that. No, you're too old. Nobody wants to see that. Spiritually, what that means is I have nothing to hide. I have no shame. I have nothing. You got nothing on me. I feel good. I feel fine. When we shift it, it's different. When Noah was naked and drunk after the flood, he was uncovered after a healing, and he felt good. All of those, they're all... That's what this is, except that it all picks up a very specific genre that the outer verbiage is now further designed to control a population when it's built on a simple yet very complex. How many ways can you... The hero with 1,000 faces. To me, it's more like the 1,000 heroes with the same face. It's 1,000 heroes with the same template. They're on the same path. They're a male called, they're reluctant. They have to turn inward. But you'll see the story sequencing, in Greek myth, the crossing of the river Styx, the sailing through the clashing rocks, commonalities with Moses and the Red Sea being parted, or the beginning of, as we're getting into like Ezekiel and Joshua, as they're starting off and having to cross the river Chebar or the Jordan. River crossings. It's like, we see the same thing in Greek myth as well as religious genre of material. The template, the heroes sound different, but the template is still the same if you watch for the concepts. If you just read the story, it's like, whoa, these are different. If you step back and go, what are the concepts? That crossing the threshold right there, that crossing the Red Sea, that's the same thing as sailing through the clashing rocks or crossing the river Chebar or the river Styx. All of those are the same thing, even though they sound different, because conceptually they mean crossing the threshold. It's a water crossing. What do we see with Jesus? Baptismal, 40 days in the wilderness. What did we see with Moses? Red Sea, 40 years in the desert. What are we looking at? The number 40, pure state, developed. How long did it take to flood out the world to purify it the first time? It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. That developed 40 as a number that's going to be continually used throughout biblical material, which means the same thing, this pure to the healing state. We're going to spend 40 here until the healing happens. And then what do we have in the desert or in the wilderness? Both of them devoid, analogous places. We're seeing that shift of things that are happening. It's not in a city. It's not in downtown or the slums or somewhere like that. They're in devoid places, the desert, the wilderness, for 40 to the time. You get away from things, find your peace, and stay away from it until you strip naked. Sounds strange. That's what they're doing. They have to know what to do. You have to spend time resolving the issues. You reconnect with your inner self. You want to have a marriage of inner self. What that means is you're not sitting there in a quiet, peaceful place thinking in your head, God, I got to do this. I got to do that. I don't want to go back. You're not, you have this inner conflict. You want to get beyond all that. That's having a divorce from your inner self. That's why the terms and the hierarchy become so important, and why we want to what? We want to have a marriage in the bridal chamber up here. We want our conscious and our subconscious to be able to coexist by getting rid of the mote in the eye. How many ways can you say the same thing? You become that person. You become Noah. You become Enoch. You become, well, any one of them. Anytime you have a Greek hero that's going to start, if you went into biblical material, what you're going to find is Jewish prophets. Same thing. Or when you get down into the New Testament, Jesus, the next one, the monomyth. There's even two places that I know of right now where I can see story networking happening. If you read Greek myth in the Voyage of the Argo, what you're going to find is that they were struggling to get underway before they went through the clashing rocks. They're moving along. Hercules was originally with them. Hercules is a hero. Jason's a hero. But before they go through the clashing rocks, Hercules exits. He does not go on the adventure. However, later, there's a story of Hercules starting at that point right there. So they've networked a story off of another story. But they came down creation, got something underway, and then branched it out. They keep branching it out to make more stories. It's an entertainment system. We get into the Bible, and what do we see? Oh, and remember, Hercules left before the adventure. You don't send two heroes on the same adventure. Only one goes. When we get into Genesis, what do we see right up front? We see Enoch, who was perfect, was taken by God before the flood. Story network. He is a hero. If you read the book of Enoch, you're going to find it's a monomyth. If you read Genesis, you're going to find it's monomyth. But Noah and Enoch don't both belong on the same boat, the same way that Hercules and Jason don't belong on the same boat. See it? It's there. Okay. All right. So what's important to note on these stories as we're fighting back and forth on whether somebody's right or wrong is to sit back and go, wait a minute, none of you guys are seeing this right here. There's something else in here that if you can get your brain wrapped around it, you can see it. I know there's people that can't. I've been told by people it is not there because they can't see it. Meanwhile, your brain has the capacity to understand those conceptual things. I'm shifting that. That's all part of me. Crossing that threshold, that's me turning inward. Belly of the whale, that's in my mind. Road of trials, that's me dealing with the demons in my... Yeah. You know what you're going to see at the start of a monomyth? You just go to Ezekiel or Joshua even and read these if you want them clear nearby, is you're going to see that God appears, calls the person. The person has got a river crossing. They're going to have to eat a roll, eat a scroll, eat something like that, to have words put in their mouth of mourning and woe and things like that. There's some bizarre things going on, but that's where we're getting ready to cross. The calling is happening. The threshold is being established. The supernatural aid is being given. And it's time to go in, and what do? You have to go defeat something. It starts up in Genesis. I got to defeat the world. I got to defeat Sodom. We get downstream, and we have to we got to defeat Jericho, or we've got to go back and get the sinful Israelites that have fallen off the the pathway, back on the pathway. There's this something we have to go in and defeat. All of them represent the idea that you're turning inward, and whatever those things are that needs to be defeated, the city that has to be torn down is your early self. The world that has to be destroyed is your early self. That's the pattern. Something a person is called, they're going to have to go in, cross that threshold, go destroy something, and clean it up. That's the pattern. I'm in my closet. All of that is about turning inward and healing oneself, but held in ways that are very bizarre. The Christians carry it. They are in the material as far as standing outside the narrow gate. They're not entering in. It's an inward pathway. All of them teach an inward pathway. That's it right there. You have to enter in solo. You got to go inward by yourself. It's an inward healing path. The blind lead the blind. They'll fall into the ditch. You go to church and listen to a preacher. Enjoy the ditch. All right. And as far as atheists, you know what? I hope you find an inward path. There is one here, but you have to be objective about it. And that's what's difficult, because people get beat up on by Christianity and they hate it and they get mad about it. And I've got my reasons, I can assure you. My brother, I got his picture up here, kind of always watching over me. He was 11 years old when he hung himself because he thought he would go to heaven as soon as he died, that he could leave the abuse. I was 9 years old. I cut him out of the tree. I found him. It's kind of a goal to find out what happened, but you can't do it mad about it. You got to be objective to find the truth. All right. I hope this was a gentle video then and explanatory in a way that says, you know what, Paul did not. There's a concept that's much bigger going on. And Jesus is teaching something that honestly, read the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Buddha's Dhammapada, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. You're going to find 3 pieces of work from 3 masters that would have been drinking tea together. Absolutely. And saying, how are you going to tell your people this? I'm going to tell them this way. Oh, I'm from China. I'm going to have to say it something different. Buddhism is pretty plain language. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. Lao Tzu says, I'm going to say naming is the origin of all particular things. Oh, cryptic. Jesus, judge not, lest you be judged. For the judgment with which you judge others will become a part of you. You're now judging something. You're naming it. You are deciding it, and you're going to become part of it. All of them are teaching the same thing in radically different verbiage. Okay, so I think our problem is we get caught up in our little worlds. We start off as a nothing, and we learn from where we are, and we only grow to so much. We have to keep open minds and look more. To me, Paul did something really significantly bad, and I think it's in Romans, and you have to pick through a few verses to find it. I'm just going to paraphrase it here in this video. But basically, he alluded to the idea that if you just worship Jesus, he's the Son of God, he was born to a virgin, he died for your sins, you worship Jesus, you're good to go. Right there. Christians don't follow the teachings of Jesus. They were not told, go to the Sermon on the Mount and pay attention to it and understand it and learn it and live it. When it says, blessed are the poor, or blessed are the poor in spirit, what does that mean? You don't just go, oh, wow, there's nothing to interpret there. I'm poor. Oh, I'm not poor. I don't. Let's just ignore it. That's not interpreting it. Christians, you're not interpreting the material. Poor in spirit. Spirit, this is what I live through. Poor, devoid of. I got this massive stuff up here. I need to get rid of that massive stuff. I'm living through this bundle of memories, my judgments. You have to understand the material. Blessed are those who mourn. You're mourning inward. The meek will inherit the earth. You're not going to inherit the earth, the physical earth. This is the earth you have to inherit. You got to go easy on yourself. The meek will inherit the earth. You can't go, what a piece of shit I am. I lived that way for a long time. It took a while to find this path, but the path works. The story of Jesus is much more significant, as far as I'm concerned, than Christianity. However, society needs the supernatural belief to circumvent the fear of truth. I think that truth cannot be denied anymore. If there's any if there's any denominations dropping, it's because people have got it. But you know what? We're evolving. Christianity is not what is driving the problem. Over evolution is. Christianity is an excuse. It was utilized one time for population control, but it went out of control under Paul, not because he invented Jesus. Why would he invent Jesus and then tell people don't even just worship him? That doesn't make any sense. He didn't invent Jesus. He's developing something that's very crucial. I just wish he'd have said, follow Jesus, don't just worship him. That's where it got messed up. All right. Atheists, there's something there. There's something in there. It's an inward path. See you in the next video.